Hello, fly chick coming through. Nice to meet ya, glad you came too. Like your style and you know you got moves. You spit game and you know you spit smooth. Glad you came, it's best you come and stay. I need you loving like water in the bay. Let's walk down the aisle, make a baby. I ain't been in love like this somewhat lately. Step into the room with the crown on top.
Welcome to another edition of the Fear the North podcast. We hope everybody enjoyed that little bounce up musical tune at the beginning to really set the tone right now within the division. I am Irie Harris. I enjoyed by my lovely co-host partners in crime, Sapphire, and then Chris Murray, established journalist and author. Now, for those that were in tune this past Saturday, we did, still within the sense of the AFC North football, but, a little bit something different, in which we specifically spoke on the terrific primetime game that was this past Thursday night between the Ravens and the Bengals. The Ravens would take that in a 35-34 win. And now it's time for us to not only speak ahead of what is in store for those teams, but also with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off another terrific win over Washington, and then diving into the second half plans and the overlook atmosphere-wise for the Cleveland Browns. So we have a lot to dive into. And, I think it's best to start with the Browns. No, I'm just playing. We're saving that for later. I just wanted to see your reaction.
I'm sorry. Aren't the Browns still on bye week? Are they relevant at all anymore other than playing the spoiler?
They've been on a bye week all season. I hate to say that, but
mid-season,
God, tell some truth there.
Mid-season form we are in, yes, jokingly as so. So we are going to dive right now into the Steelers, 7-2. Okay, first within the division. They come across with another close clinching win, 28-27 win over Washington. A game in which they held Washington scoreless in the fourth quarter and came away with the win. It was really the little things that helped out. Thoughts within the Week 10 win for Pittsburgh and what we're seeing right now, especially coming off the bye week that is too. We're really talking a little bit about what we could expect. We want to save our full thoughts ahead for after the game and when seeing the final result. But just opening thoughts within this game, good, bad, anything. More so good, I would assume, because this team is on fire right now.
Yeah, for the Steelers organization, nothing but good. As I watched that game, and in particular, Mike Tomlin's body language, his halftime comments about how the Steelers cannot let penalties or the referees determine the outcome of the game, the substitutions that were made, I started thinking about Bill Belichick. I mean, from the perspective of how Mike Tomlin is so confident in his team's capabilities and the talent that they have, and regardless of who's playing or not, like plug and play, he knew the Steelers were going to leave the Washington, former FedEx Field, whatever they're calling it, with a victory. That was my biggest takeaway from the game.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna basically talk about that fourth quarter and the fact that the Steelers just kept coming, and Washington really didn't do much in that fourth quarter. Looking at it, they got turnover on downs. They had to punt. They had to punt 3 times in that quarter, and it was just a situation where they just couldn't get it done, and they had opportunities. They had those opportunities to beat Pittsburgh, but they just didn't do it. And in the end, they had a 10-point lead, and they're still young. But see, that's the difference between a young football team and a veteran football team like Pittsburgh. That's what that kind of came down to. And Jaden Daniels will get his opportunities, but he's lost to both Pittsburgh and Baltimore, by a total of 8 points this year. So they're kind of they're on the cusp, but they ain't there yet, and they don't know how to win those games against playoff caliber teams like like Baltimore and like Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson proved once again why Mike Tomlin started him, mainly because of the last pass to Mike Williams, and that Mike Williams situation was a great move for them because you got a veteran receiver who's tasted some success in the league, and he's going to give Baltimore and them some problems. He's going to be a problem, especially against that porous secondary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about last week, but I also want to go back and say it wasn't that the Washington Commanders could not execute. It was the Steelers' defensive line that kept pressure on Jaden Daniels all day long. When was the last time he went without throwing a TD, right? Or running a TD?
Jaden Daniels, that is that you are asking of?
Yeah. When was the last time that you recall he did not throw a touchdown pass or run in for a TD in a game this season?
When they played Carolina, October 20th, I believe.
See, that's defense. To me, something that separates, again, the AFC North from all the other divisions. The defense can win games as well. The pressure that he was under all day, and even a couple of those hits, including on that damaged side of his body with the ribs, you can tell he was not 100%, right? Yeah. So, I mean, for me, Pittsburgh's D-line once again dictated their will on their competitor.
Yeah, and they were able to overcome some turnovers too, because he threw an interception, and they also had a fumble in that situation where they saw a drive come to an end. So, and after that, after they forced Washington to that three and out and whatnot, that's when they came back. And you can't let a team like Pittsburgh just hang around. That's right. You can't let them hang around, and that's what happened. I mean, they got their shot. Sooner or later, if you don't execute, and they didn't have Brian Robinson out, in that game either, so they really couldn't put the game away, and the way they wanted to. And I think Austin Eckler is a good backup, but he has spectacular moves. But you can't rely on him to be that bell cow back late in the football game and whatnot. So, so the way I see it, they let Pittsburgh hang around, and Pittsburgh is notorious for hanging around long enough to get back in the game and win it.
Your inner Ravens is coming out. Pittsburgh doesn't hang around. This is the whole point. Coming off a bye week when many teams, like you have said in the past, Chris, play down to their competition or it's a trap game. Mike Tomlin had his team all phases prepared for that game. You text me, who is Jaylen Warren? Do you remember that?
Yeah, he ran well in that game, and he just, Najee Harris had a decent game, but he made the play that pretty much, took clock off for Pittsburgh, and pretty much they were able to kind of close down Washington. Washington didn't really have a chance to really, get back into it late in the game. And, he just played well. I mean, a lot of times you need, and then what helped Pittsburgh had a 4th and 1, and they were about to go it. Washington's youth and inexperience came through where the game ended basically on a 4th and 1, and Washington defender, knowing that Pittsburgh was going to do something to draw them offside. What does he do? He jumps off sides. And when he jumped off sides and all that, that was your game. That was a ball game. That was the officials became the dagger at that point. But basically Washington put it up on the hoop, put it up on the backboard, and the officials slammed it down. That was it. They gave it to him. And and that was that. Now I don't know if they were going to make it or not. And I don't know if they would have gotten the ball downfield to kick a field goal to win it. But that's the difference between a young team and a not so young team. So, you don't make mistakes like that if you're a young veteran football club like Pittsburgh. So you don't get that kind of pass to make those mistakes.
That's a nice way of looking at it, right? But let me tell you who Mr. Jaylen Warren is. What I think the Steelers had a little over 300 total yards. Is that correct, Irie, in offense? Mr. Warren was responsible for 66 run yards, 29 pass yards, and 56 yards on the the kick return. A total of 151 yards is
Total
what
offense.
a total offense that he generated. I mean, you can't make that up. You cannot make that up. That's
No,
coaching.
you can't. Yeah, and that's an understanding your personnel. I mean, the Steelers defense held Washington to under 300 yards of offense, 242 yards, and both, and like I say, both passes were off. I mean, Jaden Daniel was 17 of 34, in other words, 50%, and for 202 yards. So, it was one of those games where he couldn't really make enough plays to help his team out and everything. And so at the end of the day, Pittsburgh prevailed. I mean, I think that the Commanders' defense held the Steelers pretty much for most of the half. But if you give that Mike Tomlin Steelers team an inch, they're gonna ask for everything. So what you have to, I mean, and that, like I said, it goes back to coaching. It goes back to a veteran team. Now they'll be playing a Ravens squad that's terribly undisciplined, which
Nervous, aren't you, Chris? You're nervous.
yeah, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about this game because the Steelers in recent times have had Lamar Jackson's number, although one of the things is that sometimes the Steelers have had to play the Ravens late in the season because of playoffs, so maybe Lamar hadn't gotten in. But last year they played. Last year in the last time they played Pittsburgh at home, the Ravens blew a fourth quarter lead and basically let Pittsburgh hang around. I'm not saying Pittsburgh is bad, but when you got a team, Pittsburgh is not necessarily as overtly explosive as other teams like Baltimore or Kansas City. And so what's going to happen, they're going to probably take away all the big chunk plays that they may have. And I think that'll be Derrick Henry's biggest test of the year as well. So, now I like how Pittsburgh is playing. They, like I said, I think they finally figured out a formula, and I think, and there are two teams in that division that have figured out that formula. That's Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So when it comes Sunday, to quote the late Myron Cope, that terrible talent is placed a strike, and the Ravens and the Steelers are going to get it on. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen Sunday.
Yeah. Well, before going further into that, later on to that, but if I may add my 2 cents in right quick. Yeah, I do feel that the offense has really looked just so good. I mean, it's been like, even though we always emphasize and talk about identity, and talk about culture, and that's really what also helped Washington as well in their favor for keeping this, within how close this game was. Like it's just been such a long time since we've seen the Steelers offense this good. It feels, in which no matter what point of the game it is, no matter regarding the deficit or leading as is, that there's a kind of fluidity and chemistry oozing within this team, regardless of what's happening, because of who was there within the quarterback position. Russell Wilson, man, they really said he was washed in Denver. Why, I do not know. Now, regarding the defensive play as well, I think it's something to, emphasize a little bit more, because even though, and like we said earlier, there's a veteran team, so they understand their brand of football, and it's going to show in the end. Washington still being that good, up and coming team that really knows their identity, and is really showing in why they currently lead the NFC East, in first place right now. But it also showed within Jaden Daniels, because even though he didn't account for a touchdown himself, he still accounted for 124 passing yards in the second half, 124 of his 202 on that. So even though he wasn't as effective in the first half, he eventually got it going in the second half, showing just how good that team is. Yet the one thing he had to combat was the number of blitzes accounted for by Pittsburgh. He faced a season-high 20 blitzes from Pittsburgh. No other defense he has gone against, including the Browns, who was praised as the best team, the best defense, during last year. Even they did not get as many blitzes as Pittsburgh did this year. Pittsburgh is the only team right now versus Washington so far to account for over 20 or more blitzes versus Washington. So Jaden Daniels faced 20 blitzes, and we really saw it within a number of throwaways and, definitely quicker passes that he had to get off and stuff. So that really, I thought, that's what made a difference because we see how it was within the end game. And going back within that that fourth down, as you mentioned earlier, Jordan Newton was the Washington player who accounted for that flag, in which it was a neutral time infraction. And did you see the way that Pittsburgh just kind of just celebrated that? Like, it's one thing to be happy about, but I don't know why. I just really took notes of the scene, the way that Russell Wilson and his team together in that moment jumped around, pointed and everything, and high fiving and stuff. Like, this team is serious, and they know that they're good, and they know that they're rolling. And while everybody else within the outside, including myself, if I may admit, it's still surprised, like knowing this team will be good, but thinking they're this good, they're not. They know how good they are. And we talk about the swagger that Mike Tomlin walks with when he knows he has a good football team on his hands. That's what I saw once again during that game and after. He did not look worried at all. He did not look phased to me at any time. Still kept them shades, still smiling during that game. This is a team to reckon with. Yeah.
I listen, you are saying the same thing that Chris said a few moments ago. It's about knowing your players' capabilities, knowing what they can do, putting them on the field in the right situations after being coached on what to do. And that's what I was mentioning when I first started about Mike Tomlin's body language. I don't recall a time when he was so overtly, expressive about what he felt his team could do on that field. Even after that, whatever you want to call the final play of the game, at least for Washington, when he took his little piece of paper and kind of flipped it like, come on, get out of here. That is the domino effect of what we're seeing with the Steelers on the field, including, as they put Sunday, Rue Wilson. It was a real personal game. It was a real statement game. This, to me, what are we, week 11-ish? The Steelers have been so disrespected. And they've been flying under the radar. And I just think this upcoming game with the Ravens is going to be a coming out party with an asterisk. Mr. Highsmith has been ruled out against the Ravens in that game. What do you both think the impact of that could be in terms of the Ravens running game?
That's huge because that running game with Derrick Henry, and I think they're going to have to emphasize that running game because I think the number one headache that Mike Tomlin has this week. How am I going to defend Lamar Jackson? How am I going to defend probably the three-time MVP in this game? And I looked at Pittsburgh the other day in that game. I'm impressed by them in the sense that you were talking about. They were all celebrating that play at the end. That's kind of a hallmark to what, in terms of the discipline that Tomlin instills into his team. So that's the thing when they were celebrating. That was a fundamental play. That was a play where Russell Wilson drew them off sides and everything. And that's the difference between a disciplined team and a young team still trying to figure it out, even though Washington and they play Philadelphia on Thursday night football.
Great game.
And so from that standpoint, that's why there was that celebration because of what they did with their head. They outthought and they outdisciplined Washington in that game.
Fact.
Go ahead, Irene.
I was just gonna say, and it's gonna be interesting because we're talking about them going against Lamar, and Sapphire, I'll give you the credit on this. Like you could say technically just went up and made a statement win versus a younger version of Lamar. Huh?
You know what? Absolutely. I'm thinking about this game, and I actually have chill bumps. Okay,
Goosebumps.
And let me
Goosebumps.
Yes. Still goose, you throw all the bumps, right? Like, as much as I despise the Pittsburgh Steelers as a Cleveland Browns fan, I'm watching greatness and I can't hate. This is the best coached Steelers team I have watched play in years. And I want to go back to Highsmith being ruled out. I asked what kind of impact both of you felt this could have on, the Ravens run game, because I kind of feel like if the Ravens O-line and running game can give Lamar time, I think Joey Porter Jr. is suspect. I thought he had a terrible game on Sunday, right?
Yeah, that was not good.
But you also have to offset that with Mr. Bishop Jr., right? I mean, the strategy that in my mind is going on right now, just from a Steelers defensive perspective, I am so looking forward to seeing how they have game planned for Lamar as well.
I'm also looking forward to the kind of intel that Patrick Queen is giving them right now. Even though this is a division where there really is no sense of secrecy, everybody knows everybody's game plan. They know everything within them. Yeah. They know where to go every morning, for breakfast. They know where they go get their guy. Like, even though they know everything, it's still interesting within those little tidbits and intricacies that we may not even know of, that Patrick might know about after spending just with Baltimore. I'm also looking forward within that matchup as well too. But yes, this could have a big impact within the run game. Usually I would be the one to say, well, it may not make too much of a difference, because I even go back to last year when Pittsburgh beat Cleveland that Week 2 Monday night game, a game in which there was no Cameron Hayward, and they were saying the same thing as to what kind of impact this could have. And T.J. Watt went out there and dominated, and Highsmith was right there too as well, and they had led a defensive win. They led a defensive win in that. So I will go within that saying that they'll still be able to hold enough. You don't have, that's not, the other games were not against teams that feature King Henry. This is featuring Derrick Henry right now. That is something that has to be noted, because Derrick Henry is still playing at an MVP level when given the ball. Though the one thing I will say is the only way that could really hurt is if Baltimore does the opposite of how they started off Thursday night's game and really uses Henry, at least early on, as the workhorse, allowing him to run, create opportunities elsewhere within the offense, and really get Lamar's legs running as well too. Everything doesn't have to be stand tall within the pocket. We can get some RPOs going. We can get some of that going, because we know the legs is what really are, especially within this run defense, because this Pittsburgh defense is one of the best run defenses in the league right now as well too. You really want to test it when you have two of the best guys in the league with legs.
Absolutely. Ranked 8th going into the game against the Commanders. I'm curious, Chris, Reed just pointed out what you talked about in our interim podcast in terms of, could it be that the Ravens were saving Derrick Henry for this game? And was that a reason why they didn't really have that more balanced attack that we were expecting them to have at the beginning of their last game?
Well, one theory I have of it, I think that Henry's kind of on a pitch count at this juncture of the season, because they're really trying to preserve him, towards the end of the season. And I think that's when it's going to come together. I do think that the Ravens are looking to get Deontay Johnson into the mix and whatnot, because they've been talking about it, and he was kind of frustrated not being able to get. He's been there for 2 games, and they need to have him as a part of that passing game, and they need that extra wrinkle. But the question for the Ravens is whether or not they're going to be getting Kyle Hamilton back, and because their secondary is still not very good. But the only part of that is that the Steelers don't have a Jamar Chase in their wide receiver core. They have Mike Williams. And Mike Williams is not Jamar Chase, but the Ravens secondary is still suspect.
So do you see the combination of Williams and Pickens as close to Chase that the Steelers could get, right?
Yeah. But I mean, that's not to say, I mean, everybody's been kind of torching the Ravens secondary, but I think that it's going to present a problem unless Zach Orr comes up with a scheme to stop it. But that's the problem, and I think they recognize it. But I do think that having the extra time off has given them some time to kind of figure out what other adjustments can they make. But I think Baltimore's defense also has to basically go after Russell Wilson, because that's going to be
Absolutely.
the thing. And and when they get off to a lead, they can't. I mean, you got to step on Pittsburgh. If somehow the Ravens get a big lead, they got to step on them soon. And because if Mike Tomlin has that opportunity, that's going to happen as well. So I'm just basically trying to say in this situation that this is not going to be easy game for both teams. And it could be a war of attrition. Who makes the biggest mistake in the game? Because in this rivalry, you got to throw out records. You got to throw out all the little records and all the other things. And that this is a very bitter rivalry. And in the last few years, Pittsburgh has gotten the best of Baltimore. And so, and I'm saying Baltimore is due. Baltimore is due for a big game against Pittsburgh, because I think they owe Pittsburgh one. And I think people are going to be looking at this. Lamar has to kind of start exercising his demons. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. I mean, and the thing is, in that Kansas City game, he almost won that game. Almost, but he didn't do it. But I think that Lamar, if he's going to cement his MVP credentials, he's got to basically come up big against a team that has been in recent years his nemesis. And so that's going to be the thing that I think that, that's going to show me something. But I mean, like I said, this is a rivalry game where you throw out the records, where you throw out all the, both teams are talented. Both teams will find a way to win the game, and maybe a special teams play or something. But Baltimore, I think, is feeling that pressure of having to beat Pittsburgh, and that's going to be an interesting matchup. I mean, I say Baltimore will probably win it, but it's going to be, they can't turn the ball over. They can't. They cannot. They've got to move the ball, and they got to run the ball. They got at least, even if it's not going to work for the first few plays, you got to keep doing it. Even if you get 2 or 3 yards and whatnot, it's like a body punch in boxing. You keep hammering at that body, the head's going to fall eventually.
Yeah. But it's curious. You mentioned that the Steelers have had the Ravens and Lamar Jackson's number for a couple of seasons. I just got to remind you, that was with Kenny Pickett, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a whole other galaxy with Russell Wilson.
We are in a whole other galaxy. But then you also have to remember that before last year, the Ravens lost some of those games because they didn't have Lamar in those situations too. They were hurt. He was hurt the last couple of years. And I think last year, the Steelers and Ravens, basically played at the end of the regular season where the Ravens had already clinched home field advantage in the playoffs. And so they put out their backups, and Pittsburgh won the game. But I think in this particular time, this time around, this might be the first meaningful game that Lamar has played against Pittsburgh in quite some time. And this is the game that I think, this is going to be a game that determines the division, because if Pittsburgh wins, they'll get a 2-point lead in division. I don't think anybody's catching them if that's the case. But I think if Baltimore wins, they take the lead in the division, but they still have some tough, and Pittsburgh still has to play Cincinnati. And I think there's some other good teams that Pittsburgh has to play as well to look at their schedule. But my thing at the end of the day, though, I think Pittsburgh, to me, has gotten by through guts and guile mostly. And I think that, I'm thinking that maybe if they play a team like Baltimore, that's either going to lift them, or we're going to see where their level is. And we're going to see, if you're right, Sapphire, that that Pittsburgh team is a sleeper team. We will see that.
Yeah, it's curious that you mentioned that, because that I recall this will be Pittsburgh's first divisional game.
Yes.
So in my mind, even if Pittsburgh were to lose, I think it's, for me, too premature to designate the Ravens as the division, leader. That, number one. And number two, I want to go back. Someone mentioned Deontay Johnson. Here's a curious clip from Mike Tomlin's presser today on the former Steelers player. You got me, Irie?
I do not, but if you would like to enter as well too.
All right, I'm going to hit play for the people to hear it.
All right.
That's
Can't
a
hear it.
they can't hear it either.
That are occupying my attention at this part of the week.
One more time. Here we go.
To be honest with you, I hadn't thought a lot about it. He's not on a lot of their video, and so, at this stage of the week, I don't know that I've weighed, what he might mean to the matchup. They got more significant pieces with larger roles that are occupying my attention at this part of the week.
Well,
Let the trash talking begin again. I mean, he played 5 seasons with the Steelers, right?
right.
Yeah.
It's right here. It's right here.
I mean, to be honest about it, before they got Johnson there, the Ravens receivers were a problem, and that's because of Lamar. And it might be trash talk. It might be a little trash talk. I get that. But to be honest about it, and Mike Tomlin is right, they don't have a lot of tape on him within that offense. But, they do know him. He's a former player. And I think Johnson can probably give the Ravens some insights on having to go up against the Steelers. So from that standpoint, that's, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But right now, and I'm reading an article here that basically John Harbaugh says he's going to do everything he can. They're going to have Tre'Davious White out there for this week. So they're trying to do everything they can to fix that defense, because that's the thing that worries a lot of Ravens fans, is that defense is that the way Jamar Chase was running up and down. I mean, he could have done backflips every time he caught the ball and made it to the end zone. And so they really have, because my thing is not that situation, unless they fix it, it's going to me, I'm not that convinced that they can get to a Super Bowl with that pass defense. I don't think you can unless they do something to fix it. They deployed Tre'Davious White in some other situation, that's best suited for him, that eventually helps the team. But right now, I think this is a big game for Baltimore, because they showed, they're allowing 294.3 passing yards per game, almost 300 yards a game. You can't do that. That's not sustainable. That's not going to get you. That may not even get you out of the first round of the playoffs. So the Ravens have that on their mind, and that's the thing that they're going to have to figure out this week, trying to contain Russell Wilson, who also can move around in the pocket. Remember, Russell doesn't run like Lamar, but he still has that scramble. He still has that ability to buy time, find receivers open. And against the Ravens, unless the Ravens put on a tremendous pass rush against this team. So that's going to be the thing.
Yeah, Russell. Russell is a problem you have to always be aware of, regardless of his age, because he is a future member of Canton, and I expect him once again to to show another example of that ahead of Sunday, regardless of the result.
And he can read those blitzes. He just reads the field very well. He doesn't have the speed, but it's more than offset by his on the field intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be curious to see what young Orr does, if he sticks with the zone, if he mixes it up with the blitz. Like it's just going to be a really exciting game, right? And by the way, go ahead.
I was going to say a little bit of cover 2 here and there within that. In the box, maybe 10. The way things are looking right now with Henry.
Absolutely. And Chris, I'm going to say this. This is a game where if I'm a Ravens fan, this is the game that I'm concerned about Lamar Jackson having cut all of that weight, because
Yeah.
That D line of the Steelers. If Mr. Watt gets a hold of that tush, we could be looking at a potential, should I say it?
Injury.
Absolutely. This is the AFC North, people.
Well, the thing is, but all that said, now I got to counter that, and all I can say is I can imagine Lamar Jackson in a Blues Brothers suit with a hat on and sunglasses. I'm on a mission from God, and in that situation, Lamar Jackson, the way he's been playing this year, has been on a mission from God. Considering how he's been playing,
yeah,
I think that guy. I think he wants Pittsburgh.
Yes, absolutely.
I think he wants Pittsburgh. He wants Pittsburgh and Kansas City badly, and I think that Lamar, the way that Lamar has played, in spite of all the defense's woes, Lamar has been the only thing that's been consistent. Sort of like Wu-Tang. I mean, they have been very consistent.
Beautiful.
You will get this on no other podcast, people. You'll get it on no other podcast, right?
I mean, but that's the thing.
Yeah,
he's been consistently like which one to referee, because I'm gonna put the ball all over the place today. I mean, he has been playing. He has been playing that on that high a level. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but he's been playing at that high a level all year.
And see,
I don't think he's going to be phased by J.J. Watt and company. Now he's got to be careful.
T.J. Watt.
Well, I always get they all look alike,
Yes, they do.
But I'm just saying, T.J. Watt and Hayward. Hayward's a veteran line. I mean, those guys, that defense flies to the ball. Patrick Queen knows something because I know he had to practice against
familiarity.
And
well,
so
also keep in mind, Nick Herberg will be back from I think he's been out for 2 weeks with that hamstring. Yeah. So, it's not just those two. Like, this is for real. And to your point that you've been consistently making over the last, number of weeks, Lamar Jackson had to play at a very high level, right?
Right.
And we saw again in a previous game, when he does it, there's much more parity. So I'm just curious how you feel, about that aspect of this upcoming game.
Well, the thing is, my thing in this game, though, is that the Ravens got to stick to fundamentals. Run the ball, and also Keaton, they're going to try to get, Keaton Mitchell some reps in this game too. Keaton Mitchell, unlike Justice Hill, is more of a true running back. I mean, he had a tremendous game against a very good Seattle team last season. He's coming back, I think, off of knee surgery. And I think that if they get him going, because I think that could be a wrinkle in their, in their little game plan and everything. Yeah. So that, having that guy back on the field, but I just think with that team, they gotta be patient, and they gotta keep it fundamental. Don't try to do anything fancy, Dan, or pretty. Get out there and be basic. Go out there and try to dominate the game physically, because none of this like that cutesy cute stuff that they did against Cleveland and all. I don't like it when teams get cute. I do not like it when teams get all okay. We're gonna do a triple reverse, double somersault with a cherry on top and whipped cream. No, as the late great basketball guru coach and all that, Al McGuire used to say, "No French pastry, just keep it basic. No French." Pastry. We don't want cinnamon rolls. We just want a basic. Good Lord, now I'm hungry. But we want a basic fundamental game where there's going to be some on the field fights, and it's going to be physical. What the Ravens have to do is make this a physical game offensively. That's the thing, and don't try to get around, because don't let T.J. Watt and company smell blood, because don't get away. I think they're going to throw everything they can at that defense, including Derrick Henry, and Lamar will make plays in that game. But I just think that I just think I worry about the defense and everything because, Russell Wilson will find his spots, and he's a good enough quarterback that he'll find his spots in that game. And that's what you have. But I think, this is going to be a classic AFC North matchup because you got running games. You got and remember the Ravens are one of the best teams in the league at stopping the run.
They are.
And so that's going to be, and the thing about it, if Pittsburgh can find something in their pass defense, that's going to make it interesting. But I think what Pittsburgh is going to do, run the football, medium passing, do some 12 to 15 medium passing game, get the ball out in the seams of the zone against that Ravens defense, and then they may eventually hit a big play. So that's going to be the thing that Harbaugh and them have to watch out for, and that Zach Orr who is not, right now Zach Orr
overthinks the game. Play. Yeah, lovely. Sapphire, any final remarks within this?
Yeah, going back to Zach Orr, at the end of the game versus the Commanders, if you watch his body language, he was just like shaking his head. I'm sorry, not the Commanders, but the Bengals game. He was just shaking his head. Like, Chris, I think he knew what everything that you just said. I think he knew he dodged a bullet, and he has areas, especially in that secondary, that need to be addressed. I am so curious, okay, when you think about Russell Wilson and what he brings to the table, how much do you think we're going to see him use his legs in that game?
Oh, you're going to see it a lot. Mm-hmm. You're going to see it a lot because Ravens will send some blitz. Russell Wilson has a way of just scrambling out. Well, you're going to Russell's going to use his feet in this game. Don't make any. No, there's no question about that. And you're going to see two good quarterbacks try to figure this out and maneuver their way downfield. And so, but I don't think Pittsburgh this year has met a team that's just as good as they are yet. That's the only thing, because Pittsburgh needs to be tested as well.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They do.
You think there's a remotest possibility in any situation that we would see Mr. Fields be a part of this game as well?
That's a possibility. They may use his mobility.
Yeah. Wildcat, maybe. So
I think I'm with Chris. Chris, I don't like French pastry, which was why I was flipping out. I think the Steelers' second series, they did the fake punt. And I thought, you're up 7, you're away. Like, what was that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll just be easy to see, how many French pastry plays both coaches may pull out of their bag, right?
Right.
Yeah, indeed. Well, yes, it is. And there's a whole lot to dive into, which we have. And I think that we've definitely touched on a lot of angles and elements within this upcoming matchup. Now, get to everybody else's favorite team. Looking forward to this. I know you guys don't want to talk about it, but they are part of the division, believe it or not. The Cleveland Browns, they're returning off of their bye week. They are 2-7. They will travel down to New Orleans, where they will face a Saints squad that is 3-7. Man, it's a lot to really dive into right now. And I'll just kind of set the tone. Don't know exactly what it is right now regarding the direction of this team or what they even are right now. Definitely not what we expected them to be in the beginning of the season, ahead of the season at that. The more I think about the week 1 blowout loss to Dallas, the more I think of how that really set the stone. It was such a quick roller coaster ride, and instead we're still going down, and who knows when the depth will finally end off or just roll off. But yeah, they go up against the Saints. Dawson just how to go. And furthermore, James Winston is the starter still for this team. They are still dealing with injuries. It's still just going forth. What is to you two? What would be the goals? Just the thoughts within this team, within going forward. Do you try out some of the younger guys? Do you try different things within the offense? Do you just look to just go want to know, as Kevin Stefanski says, week by week? Thoughts on everything Browns related at this point?
I was going to ask you though, what's the mood around there now that they had a bye week and everything? Yeah. What's the mood? And the same thing to you, Sapphire. what's the mood in
Okay.
Cleveland?
I'm just from my perspective. Okay.
From yeah, I'm asking you from
From-
the fan
yeah.
perspective, because what are they saying? I mean, are people cynical? Has Cleveland turned into Philadelphia, and they're totally cynical and mad and all that? Has it come down to that now?
I don't know if I could use the word cynical, but the people that I've come across and I've talked to have consistently said this: we needed a bye week from the Browns.
Yeah, everybody
Okay.
needed to buy a week. It was
And,
bad. It was
and
getting
what I
bad.
noticed too is the propaganda campaign continues, right? With some of Cleveland sports media. I've heard more interviews with Kevin Stefanski outside of his typical, modus operandi, reflecting on the history of the game and growing up in Philly and watching teams perform and how they function. And the propaganda is to try to make him more relatable, right? So there's that component. And then lastly, I think the majority of Browns fans that I have talked to are looking at the Browns do a fire sale, right? If, for example, and Irie, I'm going to hand this off to you in a few seconds. If Jameis Winston does not execute, it may be the last time we see him play on the field in a Browns uniform, right? And then from the fans' perspective about the general manager and the coach, this is an opportunity for them to understand who they are going to shop at the end of the season to get maybe better draft picks. I mean, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. And I just don't expect the Browns are going to go into this game like it's a game. I think it's too fragmented. And I think there's chaos in that locker room, right? That's my opinion of things.
Wow. What about you, Irie?
Yeah, some similar elements to kind of piggyback off that. Right now, I think people are trying to distract themselves from the chaos of the Browns and just enjoy the fact that the Cavs are still undefeated as they currently are. Speaking at a record of 12-0, I think they're still just living off the fact that the Guardians got all the way to the American League Championship Series.
Yeah,
They
it's been an overall good year for Cleveland and the state of
yeah,
Ohio.
they were
I mean,
rather
the
thinking
Buckeyes
about.
are number 2 in the playoff rankings, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. They would rather soak themselves with these, like, even then with the Bengals, they'll give them the benefit of the doubt and know how most of their losses have been one score, one position losses. Like, okay, it's just the little things. They still got fight in them. Browns are atrocious. There is atrocity. For me personally, Jameis Winston, it's hard. It's hard. Well, for one, within the quarterback position, because that's the one thing right now. It seems he went from hopefully playing for a playoff spot and to make a deep contending run to now you're playing for draft picks. And as we know, that they didn't really make any moves ahead of the trade deadline, which was kind of surprising, a little bit interesting, and you kind of wonder what they're implying of the direction of their franchise going in. They traded Darius Smith to Detroit. Quinn Jefferson would be in Buffalo. And within the quarterback position, it's hard to think that it's, at least to me, even with the optimism set, it's hard to think that Deshaun Watson will be playing again in a Browns uniform. But then again, it's even harder to think that they would look to go forward with Jameis Winston as the starter even after this season. So it's even more chaotic and more thought. And I know, Sapphire, you don't want to put Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
GTR.
They need a
Oh,
techno-structural redesign. Like, seriously, I'm going to say this again. Bill Belichick is out there. Boom, GM.
how does Bill Belichick find
Mike,
into every episode? Even at the beginning, you're
because
like,
I'm praying for it, doggone it. He started here. We lost the team and then we lost him. But, Belichick GM, Mike Vrabel is in the house. Think
was the
about it. He
was the
played for Belichick.
was the Belichick era in Cleveland your Roman Empire, Sapphire?
We were so close. And Chris, I'm not hating on Baltimore. But we were so close. If the Browns had stayed in Cleveland, Bill Belichick would probably still be our coach.
Possibly. But yeah, this team is bad. You asked me, I think it's really just time to really work within some of the more younger guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the veterans still playing, suddenly got some quote unquote injuries, and just that started hampering them, or the way they walk or the way they play, and just suddenly started to sit out a game or two. I think it's just more so to focus on the young talent within the team right now. From trying out DTR, looking further within the progress of some of the other young guys within the receiving corps, such as Cedric Tillman, the second-year player. I'd like to see a bit more working there within Jamari Thrash. I'd like to see a little more within the sense of working out the special teams unit, who really is going to be that kick returner. Because, with all due respect, right now, Jalen Darden hasn't been much, at least to me right now. I'd like to see a little bit more within that. Yeah, but that's really it if you ask me. That's why though, like, it was understood it was going to be explained. This is a bad football team.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I'm feeling you, Irie, but then I feel like what we're seeing is you still need more veteran and proven leadership, right? We can look at Russell Wilson as an extreme, but you can look and tap into younger talent. But for me, I think, well, is that cool with the fans? Because that team is not going to be competitive, right? DTR. He's so petite, guy. You know how I feel about this, guys. He's very petite. I just don't think he can take the physicality of the NFL.
Well, here's the thing, and I feel you on those couple points as well. But for one, I think the leadership, and not to say that there isn't being any leadership displayed out there, at least from the veterans, but problems of this team are deeper than any kind of leadership said. And furthermore, it's sad to say, but I don't know if they've ever really cared what's cool to the fans.
Wow.
Hey,
that's interesting. That in and of itself, what you just said, is very interesting. You're saying that the front office really doesn't give a rap about the fans.
Look, I'm not there behind the scenes. I don't need anybody trying to clip this and send it to everybody to the house and stuff. But just looking from the outside in, like, when you talk about, at least in the sense of, and nobody's the saint, I'm no saint as well, but just even within the sense of morals, morality based, like, at what point did they care about the fans with that move? Moving forward, really, and that's
I'm not gonna clip it.
That's not even diving into some of the other moves that have been made, within this front office. And then don't get me started on everything happening right now with Brook Park. Like, at what point has there been a proven sense of proven justice to where this front office is putting the fans first, whether it be on or off the field?
I may be the only one, Irie, but I just feel like until the shovel is pitched into terra firma, there still may be a conversation going on to see how they can rebuild on the lakefront.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like I was telling somebody else as well too. Like, I don't care if it's a done deal and everything is in ink. I really don't care, and don't believe that it's official until I see it actually in action. Just like you said, until there's shovels going up, down, up, down. You mean?
Yeah.
But
I had the opportunity to. I ran into a finance guy while I was trying to watch the game in peace on a Sunday, and it was curious what he said, because, again, certain Cleveland sports media has been the proxies, apparent proxies to making fans accept this move to the inner ring suburb, just 8 miles away from the stadium, is a done deal. And he himself, he used to be a Browns season ticket holder. And he said the reason why he gave up his seats were because they were stinking up the joint, right? And even when he went back to get sort of like partial season tickets, they were all sold out. And I said to him, why does every Browns fan sound like they're bipolar, right? We hate the Browns, right? And so it was kind of a nice conversation, but his point was, I don't support the move to Brook Park. He said, I can afford season tickets, but I think it would be an entirely different fan experience. And I just, again, really wonder how much of a conversation may still be going on about that move.
Well, I tell you what, in terms of making the move out to the suburbs, that's going to be interesting to see if anybody can really afford season tickets, given what's coming up in the new administration.
Ooh.
That's, that's something to think about. But
it's so controversial, Chris.
I know. But
To your point, though, something to think about because
it's
I don't
something to think
I can
about
tell
because if those tariffs, it's going to be interesting to see how much people will put their money they're going to put their dollars in if somehow next year. I mean, people are thinking about they got to buy their cars now and everything because what's going to happen? You know, people are going to start reconsidering. I mean, don't get it twisted. I think somehow sports is kind of an elastic thing economically, as I remember, what I learned in Economics 101, which means that if it's elastic like that, the fans are going to pay no matter what. Okay.
absolutely.
And I think that, a lot of times Browns fans and fans in general still hanging there in the off chance that this could be our year. This could be
Yeah.
it. We
I
could
mean,
be that's that carrot hanging
yeah,
on to us every year. The
yeah.
possibility that we might have a miracle year and turn it around until we don't do it and we're back stewing in our beer and frustrated and
Yeah,
people go home yell at their kids more if the Browns aren't winning and all
uh,
that.
well,
And so
well,
that's going to be the thing. But I just look at this Browns franchise and it's like there should be the Cleveland SOSs or something
Yeah.
because the fans are saying save or SOT save our team.
exactly.
Because-
That as well. No, well, and to kind of conclude this segment about the Browns before diving into predictions and final thoughts, like I think the one thing as well to really point out is like since the franchise returned in '99, and Sapphire, correct me if wrong, but the last couple of few seasons, within the moves of drafting Baker, of drafting Denzel and Miles, and watching them improve over a couple of seasons, and then bringing in Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, like that really from that point to ahead of this season, or really to now, it really started the first time in a long time in which there was a potential, or you know what? Furthermore, I'll really started with Kevin Stefanski coming in because his first season, 2020, is when he won his first Coach of the Year award and they made the playoffs. From that time to now, within the Stefanski era, has been the first time in a long time that this Browns franchise has had what you can consider a window of opportunity to win. Right, the first time in a long time. Now it's up to the front office to see has that window fully closed, or is there a way in which we can extend it? And it's something normal amongst all sports management offices when they compile a roster of a talent and it's not sufficing at all, or at all playing to the bar. So that's really what the big question will have to be answered within the following months to me.
Yeah,
I think that window is closed for them, though.
There you go, Chris.
That window shut. That window is shut down and closed. What they will probably do, they ought to just blow it up,
clean house,
start all over again.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they will probably. They should just blow it. Start because right now, you don't have. I mean, you can get some draft picks for guys like David Njoku and everything. You can get some
Miles Garrett.
Miles Garrett. They need to just blow it up, and they'll lose for a few years and get a better coaching. I mean, you're hoping for Bill Belichick at all costs, but
general manager,
as a general manager, but now an on-field coach. But if they want to bring in Mike Vrabel to give them a basic offense and everything,
he's already in the building,
right? So that's the thing that they need to do because right now, with this coaching staff, they're about as good as they're going to get. I mean, they're about, and I think that this coaching staff will be gone by the end of the season. I mean, these guys, right now, right now they're just. I hope they're not buying, and I hope they better be renting and not buying right at this point, because I think that that staff, I think that the front office is going to clear. All right, y'all had all this time to win something. Last year they made the playoffs and gave Browns fans hope. And this year, nothing.
This year they came in complacent.
Right.
This year, they didn't really invest in off-season and coming in, OTAs, training camp, preseason. We'll be okay. We just want to make sure we have to guard against, injury. All the hype about, it's just the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. They'll start to hit their stride, week 6 on. All propaganda, right?
Yep.
Like, it's hard. It's hard. Listen. Technostructural redesign. I already said I'm going to say it again. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
All right. Beautifully put. Well, I think that is said. I know that that's not the segment you guys are looking forward to, but it had to be done to really, fully encapsulate the gravity and essence of AFC North football right now at the moment. And now it's time for predictions. You know what? We'll just kind of go back the other way around. The Browns and the Saints play. I'm going to go with the Saints because there's nothing right now regarding the Browns that implies they will win any more than one game this season. But I do not think this will be the day for it now.
Well, okay, I gotta make. Well, my prediction is this: the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns are going to lose to the New Orleans Saints. Okay, you wanted me to sound more mystic and,
I like that.
and mysterious and all that. Okay, I'm that's what.
Yeah. Joe Woods. By the way, before you go with that fire, possible Joe Woods revenge game.
Absolutely.
Coordinator for the Saints.
You already know what I'm thinking, Irie. Yeah, don't even.
I know. I couldn't help it. You know me, man. Real rap. You know me, man. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just gonna assume Sapphire's silence also decides with the Saints as well. So we'll move on now to the Bengals. What is it with the Bengals right now?
Who they?
Exactly. Who are they? I don't know. But they travel to play the Los Angeles Chargers. I am going to give the edge to the Chargers in this. I think it'll be another one of those close games because that has been the trend right now for Cincinnati this season. But the Chargers will come on top because they excel at the little things a little tad bit better than Cincinnati. It won't even be much of a margin, but it'll be better. To me, that is. Sunday night game, by the way.
That's the Sunday night game. Wow. For some reason, I think Cincinnati's going to come back. I think they go to LA and they beat the Los Angeles Chargers because I think they're still stung from those losses, and I think they're going to come back. I think they're going to be motivated. So I'm going to pick the Bengals in that. I'm going to pick who they, whatever day or whatever or holiday. I don't know. That's how I'm looking at. I'm gonna go with the Bengals.
All right, this is one of the better pass defenses as well too within the Chargers. Sapphire, any thoughts?
Listen, I'm convinced that the Harbaugh brothers have the NFL on lockdown, and they communicate. They share strategies, right? Because they're brothers, right? But besides that, the Chargers have reconstituted themselves. Home game, Sunday Night Football on an international stage. I absolutely expect the Chargers to figure out how to win that game.
Okay.
All right. So, sorry, the average genius. 2 of us say Chargers. We'll see if we're wrong within this. Chris Murray going with the Bengals. We'll see if who they is who we really were, or it's not a better.
Or are they who they thought they were?
Exactly. Thank you for picking up for me. I appreciate that. And then lastly, premier matchup within this, the Ravens and Steelers. Man, heck of a game that's going to be. Man, oh man. I really don't even know. I've been thinking so far as to who could win this game. And are the demons going to be exercised by Lamar? Or will the Steelers will the Steelers win their 8th meeting in the last 9 meetings versus the Ravens? What will it be? I'm gonna let you guys go first, and then I'll answer and then take us out.
As the voice of football God, I believe that the Baltimore Ravens will win this game.
Nice.
But
nice.
I'm just saying, Ravens win this game because I think Lamar is going to will them to another win. And I just think it's going to be tough. I will go through several bottles of antacids, and I'll probably drink the rest of my Uncle Nearest and whatnot. And so it'll be tough, but I think at the end of the day, Baltimore prevails because I think Baltimore owes Pittsburgh a little something. But you never know because it is the Ravens and the Steelers, and luck has always favored those doggone Steelers. But we'll see.
Luck, Chris? Seriously? Luck?
Oh man, all right.
And let me tell you why I say luck, because a lot of those games are even, right? And it's like either the Ravens will do something stupid, or some other play, or Antonio Brown will stick his arms, or play with the Steelers. They'll do some kind of wild kind of play, and it's like, come on, man, that just doesn't happen. But the Ravens they don't have bad luck against Pittsburgh. They have dumb luck against Pittsburgh. So I'm just saying, from that perspective. I mean, I'm not saying because both teams are even. I'm not saying, but I think that every time a lot of those games do kind of turn out to be so close that a ball gone here or there will determine the game and all that. But I'm going to say Lamar exercises his Pittsburgh situation and wins that game.
Okay. All right. I'm writing this down because, I like to look at pre and post game predictions and results. I mean, for me, I think about what you always talk about, Chris, which teams have the more balanced attack, right?
Right.
And yes, the Steelers have a significant injury in Highsmith being out. And I think that's offset by Nick Herbert coming back. So I think that based on how the Steelers dictate on that line, that their defensive line, and while I'm concerned about Joey Porter Jr., on the defensive side, I would elevate the Steelers over the Ravens offense. That's number one. Number two, they have multiple threats on offense, from their running game to their pass game, which includes Russell Wilson, right? Who is very efficient throwing the ball. Number three, similar, look, we saw last week what they were able to do on special teams, right? Mm-hmm. So in my external, not a fan or real fan of either team, I have to go with the Steelers at home. And don't forget about their 12th man.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
And who do I go with to really break the tie of who could win? We will find out.
You and the average genius who's saying Bengals with an easy dub.
Yeah, probably him too. A little average genius. Shout out for you for the support. Going with.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. The average genius. I just want to make sure we're getting our comments in. Also just added, and Steelers got the best NFL receiver in George Pickens. Thank you for adding that cherry on top of the sundae, the average genius.
Thank you very much. And for that, I will be going with the Ravens. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into another edition of the Fear the North podcast. Please like, subscribe, share our content. We appreciate the support. You can follow us on X at Fear the North 4. I repeat, it's at Fear the North 4. 4 you spell out, O-O-U-R, all that good stuff. But at Fear the North 4. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time. Irie Harris.
There's the part I wanted to hear. Not more Ravens.
Irie Harris, Sapphire, and Chris Murray. And thank you all.
I love you guys. Irie, Chris, I love you guys. You all, thanks for listening, tuning in, man. We're here every Tuesday night. Thank you. Best of success to all of your teams. Peace out.
Peace out.